August 26, 2023. To my beloved Linus Bear. Today, my heart felt heavy and I cried. For all the memories I can see and feel, yet had never been made. For all the dreams that were fulfilled in my mind, but were torn away before they could be born. For all the chapters and paragraphs of our story that never got written or told. For all that we lost. For all that we miss. But most of all, for you. This was a journal entry that I wrote back in August. At this time, we still had Timo, but as you can see, there were still many moments where the grief of losing Linus would come back, even after over a year of his passing. And I remember seeing this diagram that was describing grief, and it showed a box, and inside of the box was a ball. Against one side of the box was a button. This was the pain button. And in the beginning, when we first lose someone or something we love dearly, the ball is really big. So there's no way for the ball to move anywhere without touching that pain button. And that is when grief just overwhelms us constantly, every single day, every moment. It's like we're drowning in pain and grief. As time goes by, the ball gets smaller, a little bit smaller, so that eventually it can move and bounce off the other sides of the box and not trigger any pain. But the moments that it does happen to hit that button, the level of that pain is just as strong. And we still feel like it overwhelms us. But it's just that the ball hits that button less frequently. And I think that visual is very accurate. Grief never really goes away, but those waves of grief will be less and less frequent. When it does hit, it's no less painful. And what I've learned from Linus and from now Timo is to not push that grief away and to not avoid it, to not numb it, but to sit in it and let my heart feel all of it. Let my mind think all the thoughts. Let everything come and then pass through me. When we lost Linus, it was such a shock and it was so hard to accept because we had dreams and beliefs that it was ruin Linus and us forever or, at least for many, many, many years to come. We did not ever anticipate what happened. And I think most life tragedies, if not all, is like that. And I think that's why it was so incredibly difficult for me to accept and to process, and took me so long to even feel an ounce of being okay. And going through that, I really do think that the grief of losing Linus helped me to be better equipped to cope with now Timo's loss. It doesn't make any of it any easier or any less painful, but I just have better tools now to cope with it. I know what are the things that I need to do or I need to not do in order to work through the grief. So for today's episode, it won't be a long one, but I just wanted to talk more about Timo's situation. Last time's episode was just immediately after the fact, and it was really me pouring out my heart from what I wrote in my journal. But I didn't really get too much into Timo's situation and his health and what we've been doing afterwards. So Timo has had issues from the day that we adopted him. And a week into it, as some of you may know if you listened to that episode, he already was hospitalized. And they had found he had ulcers and he had kidney issues, he had dental issues. There were a lot of issues. And what the vet mentioned at that time already was likely he also had more chronic issues, underlying issues that they can't detect at the moment, but that we would have to continuously deal with for the rest of Timo's life. It was hard to hear that, but we never ever once even considered not giving everything we possibly could to help him as much as we can and give him the longest and most fulfilling life that he could have. Every time, every visit, which was every 6, 7, 8 weeks, we would try to understand more and more about his condition, but it was extremely difficult. And it was not for a lack of trying. We know that Timo's vet literally did everything that he could. We are very thankful for the team that they have there and how much they cared for Timo. Despite not knowing each time, we still had hope. And we still thought, okay, we'll go maybe by process of elimination and eliminate what we can so that we can try to at least narrow down what it isn't. And this was also all in between, his regular dental procedures that he had to have to keep his teeth trimmed because he had dental disease. So there was a lot going on for poor little Timo and a lot for his little body to handle. He fought the best he could. We have no doubt about that. And this last time around, it was after his dental procedure and he was healing and doing so well. He actually was recovering even better than his previous dental procedures before. He was jumping back into his wild, crazy, hyper self a lot sooner than normal. So we were thinking, oh, this is all great news. But then suddenly, a couple days later, he took a turn for the worse. He wasn't eating, he wasn't moving, and he was clearly in pain and uncomfortable. And we thought, okay, let's try to help him for a little bit first, and if it doesn't work, we'll take him to emergency. So we tried to get him some critical care in. We gave him gas drops, we gave him gentle tummy massages, and we kept monitoring. When he wasn't better hours later, that's when I called the hospital. The exotics team actually wasn't in anymore, but thankfully, because Timo's such a regular there, the entire hospital and all their staff know him well, and they were willing to take him in to see him. And I remember thinking, okay, good. I was relieved. I thought, every single time Timo goes into emergency, he comes out okay. He's always fine afterwards. So I genuinely believed this was going to be the same thing. He was going to go in, they would take care of him, give him what he needed, painkillers, IV, incubator, and he would recover and come back home in a few days. We dropped him off. We came home, and about 20 minutes after we came home, we got the call. And I remember seeing the phone number on my phone, and my heart already sank a little. Usually, no call in the middle of the night is good news. So I knew if they were calling, something must have happened. Bundad suspected as much too. We picked up the phone, I put it on speaker, and the emergency vet was talking, and I can't even remember his exact words, but he said that he was deteriorating. They called Timo's primary vet to ask for his insight, and they decided to put him on IV. But as they were going about that, Timo's heart stopped. So they began to perform CPR. After a while of trying and not succeeding, that's when they decided to call us. And when he relayed that part of the news, I already burst out into tears. There was a pause on the line, quiet. And I remember through tears saying, okay. Another pause, silence. Okay. I repeated. And the vet, he asked gently, do you want us to continue CPR? I had looked at Bundad, and we both knew that if he didn't come back now, he probably wasn't coming back. And we didn't want to have to keep putting him through anything else. So we said, it's okay. And the doctor apologized profusely, even though we knew it wasn't his fault. He really did his best. And he asked, do you want to come back to see him one more time? And we said yes. We hung up the phone, and I collapsed into our armchair and just cried. Bundad sat beside me with his arms around me, and we both just took a moment to process this phone call and this news. I remember looking up at Bundad and saying, we were too late, we brought him too late. And Bundad said, no, it's not our fault. We did our best, it's not our fault. It was too much for his little body to handle again and again. After I think it was about maybe 20 or 25 minutes, we left and went back to the hospital. They brought Timo out on a beautiful little pillow with a blanket and gave us some time alone with him to say goodbye. After that, they came in when we were ready and called them. They came in to talk about the aftercare, which meant, did we want him cremated? Did we want him cremated privately or in a group cremation? So we had to make these different decisions and choices. Even though now, thinking back, it all seems like a bit of a blur, but we went through it. We went through the entire process. And then when we were ready, they took Timo back. And we took the carrier and we left. I don't know how to describe the heartbreak of holding your fur baby when there's no longer any life in them. I remember when it was Linus and thinking, oh my goodness, he's so light. There's no life in him. And with Timo, it was the same. We gave both of them lots of kisses, kept telling them we love them, we miss them so much, that they were such good boys, and we would see them again one day. It's difficult holding them knowing that it was the last time we'd be able to touch them and feel them and be in their presence physically. After that, I already shared in the last episode what the nights were like and waking up, crying, and the thoughts that were going through my mind at that time. And I mentioned a lot about the guilt. And I carried that guilt with me for many of those days in that first week. And even though I had mechanisms and tools to help me to work through that guilt and let go of that guilt, it wasn't actually until about a week later when we got a call from Timo's primary vet to offer his condolences that I really felt that burden of guilt get lifted. I know that with time, I would have been able to work through that guilt on my own and been able to let go and forgive myself on my own. But having that call with his primary vet really, really helped. Because Timo's vet was with him from the very beginning, saw him for every single one of his visits, took care of him so incredibly attentively and with so much love and care. We always felt safe and comfortable in trusting Timo into our vet's hands. So he was the one who knew Timo's situation the most, who understood it better than anyone else and understood also how much we didn't know and couldn't figure out. He was always very honest and very open. When he called that day and I picked up and I heard his voice, my heart immediately melted. I thought it was incredibly wonderful and sweet for him to have called. I know he has many patients, many clients, and for him to take time out of his day to call us and speak to us, that was just meant so much to us. And he reassured us and said that basically with Timo, It was like he was getting into a car accident again and again. And each time he would recover and it would seem he was, back to normal and doing so well. But it definitely took a toll on his body and on his health. And when he would go in again, it was like getting into another accident again, and it would just make things worse. So despite how hard we fought and how hard we tried, unfortunately, this ending for Timo was probably inevitable. And it wasn't for a lack of us doing something. It wasn't that we didn't do enough or do it soon enough, or we didn't try this or try that. We did all that we could. And when I heard that personally from Timo's vet, it really did feel like that giant weight of guilt was lifted. He knew Timo's health the most. He knew his situation the most. If it's anyone who can make that kind of statement, it would be him. And we trust him fully. So I am incredibly grateful to him and very, very thankful for all his time and effort that he put to take care of Timo and try to find something, some way to help him to heal and recover from whatever it was that he was suffering from. And now coping with it all, with losing Timo, losing Linus, it's definitely a learning process and also just an experiencing process. It's not something we can avoid. It's happened. We have to work through it. And so rather than focusing on what we've lost, we try to focus on what we have. We try to focus on how blessed we are for what we got to experience with them, for what we had with them, and for all that they've given to us that continues on today, even though they've crossed the Rainbow Bridge. And I try to maintain a good daily routine, which has always, in these last few years, been what has grounded me. So I know the things that I need to do in order to help my mind, my heart, my everything to be grounded. I still work out, do exercise, I journal, have time for stillness, have time for loved ones, and all of it has been incredibly helpful. I know when I need my space and need to be alone to process, and I also don't hesitate to reach out or to speak what's in my heart when I need the help and I need the support. And all of this I learned through going through it first with losing Linus. Again, it's not easy. It's not easy to just jump back right into things, but all of these things do have such a positive impact on me that I know it's quite important for me to keep the routines and to do them. I think it was 2 days after when Timo passed away that I immediately jumped into working out again that morning, and it was hard. I was crying so hard throughout the entire workout. But that's what I needed. Working out, journaling, the stillness, all of these practices force me to be in my feelings and to sit in them so that I'm working through them and with them and really learning how to live with the grief, with the pain, without it destroying me. Rue has been doing very well. She's such a strong, resilient girl, and it always gives us so much comfort and strength when we see her. I did worry about her this time because with Linus, she got a chance to say goodbye. We were able to bring her to the vet with us when we had to say goodbye to Linus, and so she got to see him and smell him and touch him, and she knew that he passed. So she didn't think that he had abandoned her, and she was able to cope with his loss pretty well. With Timo, it was different. He was in the hospital, and then suddenly he was gone. But I wasn't sure if that would affect her negatively, if she would think that Timo just disappeared and abandoned her, and if it would cause her to fall into sadness and grief because of it. And we saw the signs that she missed him. So she would go to Timo's Stuffy, his plushie, all the time. She would lay beside it, she would groom it, and every time we saw that, our hearts would break again and again. And I would be extremely worried. Is she okay? Is she gonna be okay? Is she too lonely? What are we going to do? And sometimes I would just say to her, Rue, are you okay? Are you sad? And one time, it was as though she understood what I was trying to say and what I was feeling and what I was worrying about. And immediately after I asked her, Rue, are you okay? She got up and she did a binky right in front of me. And a big smile broke across my face. And I felt relief. And Bun Dad now always makes it a point, because he knows how incredibly worried I am, that every time he sees her zoomy or binky, he'll make sure to let me know right away, because he knows that it eases that part of me inside. And we see it often. We see her doing her zoomies in the morning, before breakfast. She does it mid-morning after breakfast, before she settles down for her deep, deep sleep, and then again at night. So it amazes us. She can grieve and she misses her friends, but she still is able to have joy. And she still lives in the present moment, and she still finds things that make her happy, and she'll show her happiness. We also make sure we spend tons of time with her, giving her lots of love, lots of attention, lots of affection. And so far, she's doing great. In the meantime, as we continue to work through all of this, we're going to take our time and not rush into bringing home another friend for Root just yet. I really think it's okay for us to wait, and we closely monitor Root all the time, so we would know if she starts to show signs of being lonely or too lonely and is starting to impact her health. I remember one time during one of Timo's vet visits, his hospitalizations, when I had mentioned to Bun Dad and I said, if anything happens to Timo, I don't know if I'll have the capability and the strength to do this all again, to bring home another friend for Rue again. And we had both talked about that and opened up about that at that time. And now, after it's all happened and after we're still working through all the grief of losing Timo and then the rawness of Linus coming back at the same time, in our hearts we already know we will bring home a friend for Rue again. And that's what I meant in my last episode when I kept thinking about love and how love makes us stronger. I thought that Timo's passing would really break me in a way that I wouldn't be able to handle going through this again. But loving them and experiencing their love for us has made me able to love even more. Love Rue more, so that for her sake and her benefit, I would bring home someone else for her. And love animals or bunnies more in general, so that I would still want to rescue another bunny, save him or her from whatever they went through, and give them a beautiful and loving forever home. And that just amazes me, what love can do, how love can make us stronger. So we don't know when, but the day will come. Probably not too soon, but also probably not too far into the future, when Rue will have yet another chance to have more friends come into her life. In the meantime, we're extremely grateful that she's doing so well. During this time, we are also gathering different keepsakes in memory of Timo. So we've done a bunch for Linus, which I never really got to go into on this podcast yet. But if you have followed us on Instagram and you were there during that time, then you know that we got a lot of custom things made and done. Photo albums, framed pictures, a necklace with Linus's fur inside, and the design was like a little eternal garden. We also had his paw prints made, We had him cremated and keep his ashes at home with us, and several other things. At that time, it was so hard for me that I was desperately trying to grasp onto anything and everything of his that I could still hold on to. So going and getting all of these things, ordering all of these things, actually did help me a lot with the grieving process. And now we're doing the same for Timo. It always stuns me how much we can love these furry members of our family and how much grief we go through when we lose them. They've taught me a lot and continue to teach me a lot, and I'm a better person because of them. I have no idea what the future holds for us and for Rue, but what I do know is that we will continue to do our best, and we will continue to love, to hope, and to live. Thank you all for all your beautiful messages and comments, DMs, emails, for reaching out, for all your prayers, for all your thoughts, for all the love and support that you have shown us. We know you grieve with us too, and we really know how lucky we are to have such a community of support. So thank you all. Thank you for being our community. Thank you for being our friend. We send you love wherever you are. And if you're hurting, if you're going through grief, if you're going through pain, we're sending you an embrace. Rue is sending you boops. Linus and Timo are booping you from bunny heaven. We'll get through this. We'll come out of it stronger and better. It won't be easy, but love is on our side. Life is on our side. We can do this. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.